My name's Danielle. I'm a research fellow working with Bruce Fischel and Adrian Dalka on machine learning for medical image analysis. My daughter is almost a year old. So with respect to the maternity leave, I took 20 weeks in total, which seemed at the time, I think that's basically the max you could take. So that lined up as 8 weeks of medical because I had the baby, and then 12 weeks bonding time. So the 8 weeks of medical time was full pay from MGH. And that was actually nice. I was expecting only 6 weeks, but it was 8 weeks. So that was a nice little bonus. And then the 12 weeks is from the Massachusetts PFML, basically like system where they pay you. I was trying to remember, I can't remember if it was $750 or $850 a week. And then basically you have that leave for bonding with the baby. My husband also took the 12 weeks of PFML time. So in total, oh, should I scooch over? Yeah. Is that better?
Yeah, we got time to get some pen.
Is the camera just going to keep moving?
Oh,
it is. It's tracking you or something. Okay. We'll see. I'll keep going. Yeah, so in total, we had 20 weeks. And that worked out really nicely. We took the first 3 weeks together. Then my husband went back to work, and that was from home because this was all during the pandemic, which was nice to kind of have him around. I finished out my leave, and then I went back to work while he did his remaining 9 weeks. And he's German, so we actually went to Germany for those 9 weeks, which was really nice. So it was kind of a bit of a, like, in a sense, like kind of nice, like almost soft start. I was working remotely from Germany for that time, and I could kind of make my own schedule and stuff. So I think for me, it wasn't really too bad. Like, since I'm a research fellow working on my own projects and it's all on a computer, I could basically just like stop my projects and then restart them again. So it wasn't really hard for me to like take the time off. And then I suppose in terms of like the paperwork, that was all actually easier than I thought it was going to be. Like, I think the main things I would say that I was surprised by was, first of all, the leave office was super backed up. And so my leave wasn't actually processed when I had the baby. They did it like late. And so I was like, oh, is this actually happening? But they all handled it. So it was all fine. And secondly, the PFML leave is not paid for the first week that you take. And so even though you have 12 weeks off, let's say from there, you only get paid for the like 11 weeks. And that happens every time you like start and stop the leave. So I had some friends whose like husbands basically like took a couple of weeks off at the beginning, went back to work, and then went back again on leave, and they lost that week of pay like every time. So that was a bit like of a surprise for them. And then I guess the last thing is that I was like totally clueless, I think, on some of the like admin stuff. So I didn't actually know that I was supposed to talk to like this NMR HR like group. I only talked to the HR from the hospital. And so like a week or two before my leave, they were like, you're taking maternity leave. And I was like, I guess, I don't know. I thought I was doing it all okay. So again, like, I think basically like it felt a little haphazard, but everything worked out in the end. So the like actual admin part of it, like wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was. Yeah. So that's the story.
Hi, I'm Jason Stockman. I've been at Martinos around 10 years, and now I'm assistant professor in the MR PIGS, which is Physics and Instrumentation Group for MRI. And our baby, Philip, arrived September 2nd last year, and we started childcare in January. So there were about 4 months there where we were juggling this care ourselves. So I went through the Martinos HR office, Donna and Monica. They actually guided me, hooked me up with the people from the leave office at the main hospital. I'm just looking at my old correspondence with them by email. Things went pretty smoothly. They told me what the options were. And then I elected to take the 8 weeks at full pay from the hospital. I did not elect to take the 4 additional weeks I could have gotten from the state of Massachusetts. You do have to keep in mind that the state of Massachusetts won't cover your full salary if you make over a certain amount. I think it covers about $800 a week.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is still a very good option to have, but
and I think now it's like 1,000. They just increased it.
They increased it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing you need to know is if you're going to need your full income, you can only get that. In my case, for the first 8 weeks.
Yeah.
As the partner and not the person who delivered the baby, I got 8 weeks. And then an option of 4 weeks after that. So I took 2 months, and it was wonderful. I really enjoyed every day. with the baby. I really think science, lends itself well to this sort of flexible, situation when you have a newborn. Because there tends to be a lot of flexibility to work from home or work nights, etc. So for me, it worked out pretty well. And then, so that was September, October. Then November and December, I was sort of taking calls from home. I was working, but I exploited this flexibility we have, as scientists, to maybe come in at night when my wife could cover for the kid. And we were lucky that our both sets of parents live in the Northeast, so they were able to come and help out, watching Philip while we worked. So that's how we made it work. And then we started childcare in January. So overall, it was good. The one thing I didn't know going in was how the funds get transferred. So apparently you continue being paid out of your grant during the leave, and then you apply to the hospital afterward to get your grant reimbursed. So, it's just a formality, but that's something you need to do at the end of the leave. If it's your grant that you're being funded on, you need to go to Peter Hickey and apply for your grant to be reimbursed for the time you took off. So it's not a big deal, but it's something I didn't know at the beginning, but that Peter helped me with after I came back. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Christine Sander. I'm an assistant professor here at the Martinos, working on combined PET and fMRI, looking at neuroreceptor systems. And I think that, so my son was born in July 2020, so he's almost getting to 2 years. I'm going to talk about my experience, but I think it might be a little unique, just because he was born right at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Plus, there was no MAPFL in place at the time yet, so that's changed. But I'll let the other panelists, they have already summarized that. Great. So, for me, I think that the process, I think the hospital policies were the same. The main part is that basically, I'm going to try to just add on and not repeat what the other panelists said. So I initially contacted HR, NMR, HR here at Martinos. Was the main person there handling this was Dana, and telling her about taking maternity leave. And I think she was the one, so I kind of did it the other way around. So she was the one that then really told me about contacting MGH itself. And so there was, initially, I personally was a little bit confused by the paperwork, because at the time, they had told me I could take 8 weeks, which is the hospital policy, but you're able to take 12 weeks. So I took 12 weeks, which is 8 weeks paid, fully paid from the hospital, which I think has remained the same. And then you can actually take 4 weeks of your holiday time to make that 12 weeks. I think that's kind of equivalent, may have changed of the MAPFL again, so I don't know the exact things there. So that was the only part that was a little bit confusing, but in the end, I was able to take 12 weeks. And maybe also to add on to what Jason had said about if you're funded by your own grants, so while you take maternity leave, or if your PI it pays from grants, it does get the hospital does reimburse you through a grant after the fact. The one thing to also maybe be aware of, again, if you pay from grants, is that you get reimbursed, but the time of the grant does not automatically extend in any way. So what they tell you is effectively that by the end of the lifetime of the grant, you would then ask for a no-cost extension accordingly. So that's just something in terms of logistics to be aware if you have to deal with updating the funding sources. And then in terms of childcare, again, I think because we were hit with the middle of the pandemic, maybe again, our experience was unique. I would say the one part is if you're looking to send your child to daycare as an infant spots are extremely difficult to get. I think that's still true no matter when. There is the MGH daycare. If you are interested in going to the MGH daycare, I would recommend basically to apply as soon as you know that you're pregnant, because the wait time is more than a year. I think, like, I got offered the spot when my son was like a year old or something, which was basically impossible.
That's basically what we had to, yeah.
Yeah, so they've changed it up. The system has changed around, so there might be updated numbers to that. But around Boston, there's certainly months, if not, half a year of lead time for an infant spot. So it's always good to be aware of trying to plan what your options are. So
yeah, I got on the wait list January 2021, and I still haven't heard from them a year and a half later.
Yeah.
So
and we had ours December 2020, and we just got a spot for now. So maybe yours is coming close. Yeah.
Wait a month or two.
Yeah. And what was crazy for us, at least too, is that we also had a spot in another like private daycare, and we got it. We needed it for January 1st, and we got an email for them December 15th. We're like, oh, you have a spot. But that was like, by then we had already arranged something else because like we couldn't leave it so last minute. So that was a surprise. So,
yeah.
I think
I think the hospital is aware of this problem, right? But there's a problem with getting more space to expand the daycare and personnel. There's a critical shortage of daycare professionals, especially in Eastern Massachusetts. And I think both of those are a limit on growing the daycare service, just for the one in the Navy Yard. So this is more of a political topic, but it probably can't hurt for faculty, postdocs, et cetera, to be more organized in asking the hospital to expand this. I mean, it can't hurt us. We could try, right? Because there's definitely a need, an unmet need.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that the hospital is unaware of the problem, but to get above the signal to noise for the hospital to really take aggressive action to buy a space and to staff it, they need to hear from like a lot of parents, and like eventually you'll reach the signal to noise.
We are happy to start such a petition. I mean, under the WIS, and try to collect signatures or whatever we need to show the hospital the needs. If they have like. So many people are, really about this, and especially we are a very young center, so there are more babies coming. So hopefully, someone has to pay the pensions, So
I should also mention in terms of just resources, there's an emergency daycare that exists at MGH where every employee, I think, has access to get 40 days of care, and you can book that effectively on a each day basis. The good thing is that it's emergency daycare, so it's very short notice. You can, I think, as long as they have spots, you can do it a day or two before, or you can ask them to do it even a week before. The downside is, of course, that it's not really meant to be a permanent daycare space, and so staff changes, children change, and so again, it can be a lot for a little kid. But the MGH does have that resource.
So I think we have another parent on the call, so I'm gonna turn it over to Michael now, and then maybe we can transition to Raquel as well. And I know we have some questions in the chat, so we'll get to those very soon. But yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. If everyone can hear me, it's a little strange to be a panelist virtually. I haven't done that yet. Anyway, so I have some unique, I guess, experiences that haven't been talked about yet. So I'm happy to address some of this. I'm a postdoctoral research fellow 4 days of the week, and then I'm an attending in psychiatry 1 day of the week. And I took the So my daughter, my third daughter, is now 4 months old, and I took the intermittent leave. So it's a little different. The non-birthing parent can take, I guess, 8 weeks or so. I'm not sure the exact amount over the first year of life of the child, and so you can basically every month submit the days that you stayed home or took off, and get reimbursed that. So I'm on a training grant, I'm not on my own grant. And so every month I email Raquel and tell her the 5, 10, 14 days that I took off, and then a bunch of behind the scenes magic happens and I get paid what I expected or generally. So I think it's very, very helpful. A few other things, I guess, my wife works from home and we don't have family in the area. So we had to juggle a lot of that on our own through the pandemic with the other kids and now with the little one. So I also was able to moonlight through the intermittent leave, which is something I don't think anyone else can do through this, the typical paid family leave, 8 to 12 weeks. They give you your salary, but they don't allow you to work. So for anyone whose income is more than the 4,000 or needs to moonlight to supplement their income, intermittent provides the opportunity to moonlight. So I lost the headphones there. Can you still hear me? Hello?
Yeah,
Yeah, we hear you.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so that's some perspective I can bring. I don't know if there's any questions regarding that.
Thanks so much, Michael. So I think we can turn it over to Raquel.
Hello, everyone. It's so interesting on hearing everyone's feedback on the leave process. I hope I was nice and I hope I processed everything correctly, to be honest. With the pandemic, it has been a bit overwhelming on the leave side, so I can understand on how on your side it could be a little bit frustrating when leaves are not processed on time and pay is not processed on time, and you have many, many questions, especially since 2020, everything has changed and policies have changed as well as of January 1st. In hearing all the different stories and processes, like Michael had an intermittent, I've heard a continuous paternity leave for 8 weeks, and I've heard that someone took a leave in 2020, so they only had 12 weeks, which is a bummer. And I've heard that someone took 20 weeks, which is wonderful to spend time with family. So it's great to hear feedback from everyone because that helps me and my team, the leave of absence team, to improve our process. So I have a few questions here, I believe that they have been sent to me. And question number 1, what is the maximum time of paid leave I can receive? Well, as of January 1st, 2022, for maternity leave, it all depends on the recovery period. Prior to 2022, the standard recovery period for moms was 8 weeks. But as of January 1st, 2022, it all depends on the type of delivery. If the mom has a C-section, then it will be 8 weeks of recovery. If the mom has a natural birth, then it would be a 6-week recovery period. The standard bonding still applies, is 12 weeks, with 8 weeks of salary continuation and 4 weeks through the state or paid by your vacation. Any questions on that? Hello?
I don't think so.
All right, okay.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry, Christine. Yeah, go for it.
I just wanted
It's
to
okay. Sure.
since this is new, do you understand, is the recovery time for the mom in addition now?
Yes, so maternity leave has two parts. For mom, it has the recovery period and then the bonding. So the recovery period is now 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the delivery. And additional, you have the 12 weeks of bonding.
What about if it's like a premature birth?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Will that be considered like a natural? If it's a vaginal, but it's, for example, in the, I don't know, 32 weeks, will that be, how will that be handled?
Well, the leave will start a little bit earlier then. And depending on the recovery, recoveries can be extended beyond the 8 weeks, depending on the healthcare provider form. So upon delivery, we will need a healthcare provider form completed by the OB, letting us know that mom needs more time off than just 8 weeks. Does that answer your question?
Well, what about if the babies are in the hospital and if they take, you know, the mother is going every day to the hospital to do some bonding or to, you know, for the breastfeeding or just whatever it is that added to these 8 weeks or?
No, that would be within the 8 weeks of recovery period.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because I think, I just wonder, I remember when I was looking through all the PFML stuff, there's also like PFML to care for someone who needs you. Like if your spouse has cancer or something, then you can take time off to do that. So can you, in that situation, use additional PFML to take care of this premature?
The total amount of weeks that you can take combined within maternity, paternity, and family to care for a family is 26 weeks. So if a mom, let's say for an example, she needs to be out due to recovery for 10 weeks of her personal illness, then she has the remaining time up to 26 weeks to bond with her child.
Oh, sorry, can she explain the difference between weekly and monthly paid? Because we have a wide range of people here.
Weekly paid and monthly paid, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so weekly paid, they have the short-term disability. So that is processed through an outside vendor called Unum. And based on their benefit selection, they can have 60 to 75% short-term disability, which is paid weekly through their paycheck. Versus a monthly paid employee, they are paid through their salary continuation.
So we also have two follow-up questions from the chat. We have one question. So is the 8 weeks recovery paid by MGH or the state? And then we also have a question saying, what are the constraints on parental leave for those on a J1 visa?
Okay, so the 8 weeks of recovery would be paid through MGH, which is salary continuation, and not through the state. The state is for bonding, for the remaining 4 weeks of your bonding. And the second question, that would be addressed through their HR representative, since we don't have much on the J1 visa information, but I can definitely take that question back and follow up with, I'm sorry to say, Ranka? Is that correct? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, just one more point in the chat. Megan, I think, said it would be great to have a list of things you need to do to get started on paperwork, how to get information about how much time we get off through MGH and Massachusetts, and how much, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, you can certainly go onto the Ask My HR portal and click on the leave of absence. That would be custom to you and will provide you information on how to file for a leave of absence. You can also do so through PeopleSoft on the leave of absence request tile. You could click there on the tile. And once you submit your leave of absence request, I will send you an eligibility information. We'll detail each step of your leave, what is needed, how your pay would be processed, from what week to what week, and your eligibility as well.
Yeah, I think concurrently, Women in Science as well, we've been trying to develop like a website. Or we have a website, but just a page of helping parents navigate through the different resources. And Caroline actually, who's here, she's been the one that's been working on the website. And I think there's like a few things that need to be updated from like the MGH website. So perhaps that's something that we can communicate like afterwards.
Oh yes, definitely. We can definitely communicate and connect, and I can send the information to you and revise.
Sounds good.
So I have another question, Raquel. Do you have someone there which has exactly this information about the J1? Because we have a big community of, colleagues that are from abroad and they are on J1 visas, and that seems to be a big matter here. The people on J visas, especially of course women, are feeling like a little bit, okay, if I'm pregnant and I'm gonna be able, because the J1 is like limited for 1 year and everything. So do you have someone that could address that? Because I think I've heard these questions a couple of times around.
Yeah. Sure. What I can do, I'll take this question back to my leadership and see what we can provide information to you and to your department as well. You can also email me as well your questions and your concerns, and I can take it back.
Sure.
I can say that I'm on an F1 and it was like never an issue.
Never an issue.
Like basically it didn't like I'm on F1 STEM OPT, so I have like 3 years of visa. So it wasn't an issue in the sense that it never came up, it never impacted my leave or anything like that, but like it didn't extend like the time I'm allowed to be on this visa in any way. But yeah, it was never an issue.
But the J1s are usually
J1s might be different.
Yearly reviewed, and I don't know, maybe someone is in the 4th year, you can
I don't know.
5 years. So all these little questions that are the technicalities are.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Also, I don't know about the J1s, but there might be, it might just depend on whether they're actually employed as an employee at MGH or if their funding comes through outside. I believe that if their funding comes, if they have non-employee status.
Well, that's something
this would-
different,
yeah,
because I
so-
guess they won't be so covered as MGA is not paying for them, but
Right,
I guess
exactly.
the people that are employed through NIH
Yeah.
grants and everything, I guess that's the question.
Does the MFL, sorry, I'm gonna miss that one. Apply only to people that depends on where you work or where you live. Like some people do not live, for example, in Massachusetts, but still work from Mass General Hospital. Does that PMFL still work, or is only based on where you work or where you live?
It's based on where you live. In addition, it all depends on your tax bracket. If you're still having Massachusetts taxes taken out. We have seen a lot of employees that have filed for maternity leave and paternity leave. However, they don't have any Massachusetts tax taken out, paying into the benefit, to the Mass Paid Family Leave benefit. So they're only eligible for the federal law, which is the FMLA. And I can understand that some have moved temporarily and come back. That can be addressed too on a separate matter on how the MAPFML will apply to them, since they're just living remotely temporarily.
So we have a follow-up question. Is the FMLA of 1,000 per week taxed like salary?
FMLA is not a tax benefit, it's job protection, and it's unpaid through the federal.
And we also have a follow-up question. Does the first unpaid week each time a leave starts that was mentioned by one of the panelists apply to both short-term disability 8 weeks and bonding time 12 weeks?
It applies for the bonding 12 weeks. It's a bit concerning that the state didn't cover the first week due to the fact that you are being paid for that first week by MGH. So I can definitely take that back on that process, on that question.
Another comment. I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, it's okay.
So like for the taxes, like we got, I don't know if you guys had the same thing. We got a form from Massachusetts, like around tax time that said like, hey, we gave you this PFML. The IRS hasn't determined if it's taxable or not. So like figure out your taxes. Do you remember that?
I didn't get this.
Yeah, we were like, and I know some friends of mine who paid taxes on it. We didn't because we were like, if they say they don't know, and if we have to correct it later, we'll correct it later. So that was just like very, very weird and vague. Yeah. So everything is like, I feel like because this law is so new, like the kinks aren't ironed out. Yeah.
Everything is new.
So
and
we're
they're-
just keeping an eye for later if we have to pay taxes on this thing or not.
Yeah, when it comes to the Massachusetts paid family medical leave on taxes, we address them to the state. Fortunately, we don't have much information, and when we ask, they are very vague on their answers. So I do agree on the confusion.
But the pay from Mass General,
Yeah.
you would get taxed like normal salary.
Yes.
I guess we have another question. So how is like the application process different for RAs, CRCs, and RTs, and like across postdocs and faculty members, or is it pretty much very similar?
It's the same. You can apply through PeopleSoft, and the benefits across is somewhat the same. It's 6 to 8 weeks of recovery for moms and 12 weeks of bonding. And for dads, it's not birthing parents, let's say it's 12 weeks.
To confirm, when you adopt or foster, you have the bonding, right? You don't have the recovery, but you have the bonding time available to you.
For the non-birthing parent?
In general, for fostering or adoption, which is
Right. Right, you have the bonding.
you have the bonding time extra. I'm just trying to cover all the bases so we can have a good.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, for non-birthing parent, for adoption, home replacement is 12 weeks of bonding. Yeah.
So a follow-up question. So from Anna, did I understand correctly that weekly paid employees are not eligible for a continuation of salary 100% for the first 8 weeks, but only for 60 to 75%, depending on their short-term disability plan?
Correct. The weekly, they don't have salary continuation since they're paid weekly based on their hours worked. Some of them are salary, but they still get paid weekly. And they have the short-term disability through Unum.
Do we have any other questions, or Raquel, or is there like maybe anything else that you wanted to discuss based on like inquiries that you received?
Well, most of the leave of absence requests that we have received are mainly employees rather take their salary continuation versus contacting the state. And some have extra vacation time that they rather use as pay versus contacting the state. You can do so as well. And regarding the vacation, I'm sorry, I see a question on the chat here.
I have a question in the meantime.
Sure.
How does it work for RVU requirements?
I'm sorry?
How does it work for RVU requirements when you take off intermittent leave?
RVU requirements, I don't know much on that, but you can definitely send me an email and I'll research that for you.
Sounds good.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So for bonding, it's 12 weeks, 8 weeks of salary continuation, and 4 weeks through the state. What I've seen in the in the leave process that some employees rather use their vacation for the 4 weeks instead of contacting the state.
What are the advantages of contacting the state or taking your own vacation?
Well, if you want to use your vacation time and you have a deadline to use, you can use it. Or if you want to go through the state, and I believe the cap is at this time $1,084. So there is a difference between if your pay through your vacation is higher than through the state.
We have a question. When is the right time to apply for bonding time through Unum? So far, I understood it's only after the birth of the baby.
Well, you don't apply through Unum. You will apply through PeopleSoft. And the bonding time, if it's for non-birthing parents and for moms-to-be, it would be 30 to 60 days prior to the due date.
One comment that I remember I was confused about is that when you apply for maternity leave, of course you have a due date, but oftentimes that due date is not actually the day when the baby is born. I just wanted to say that so that retrospectively, the start of the maternity leave can get adjusted to whenever you want it to start or whenever the baby was born.
Oh yes, definitely.
Didn't know that. I was very confused about that at the time, but I figured it out then. I think you had helped us.
Oh yes, babies' birth are very unpredictable. So we just need the due date just to have some sort of verity in reference to your eligibility and how much time you're eligible for. But definitely the start and end date are flexible. Mm-hmm.
I just have another question. What about if the mother has to stay in the hospital, or she should not move or something like that? Is that does it affect to the bonding time or the time that she has after the birth?
Yes, we have seen cases that unfortunately moms have stayed longer for recovery. Personal illness, that would be more so a personal illness. I have seen cases that they run up to 20 weeks of personal illness, leaving 6 weeks of bonding for the child. Reminder is up to 26 weeks that you can take for combined personal illness, maternity, paternity, and family.
So everything is possible as long as it doesn't go over the 26 weeks.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I feel like I just want to mention one thing.
Sure.
As part of the application process, it's all quite it's spelled out quite nicely on PeopleSoft. So just, what you'll need is to just enter some information, and then you'll get a form that you bring to the OB with the anticipated due date. And then you have them fill that out and fax it in or give it back to you, and then you fax it in. And then once that is received, then that's when everyone will be anticipating your start date of your leave. As was the case with me, our baby came 3 weeks early. So we just shoot off some emails, and once again, everything just starts to work itself out.
Yes, for non-birthing parents, we will need a healthcare provider form from the birthing parents' OB to be completed. As well with moms-to-be, we will need a healthcare provider form to confirm the recovery period. Mm-hmm.
We have another question in the chat. Sorry if this question has already been asked. How do parental leave policies apply if both parents are Tufts University's employees?
Tufts University employees are, this could be a bit complex. Are they full-time under MGH and work part-time under Tufts University? Because I don't think MGB administers any benefits for Tufts University employees.
I guess, yeah, follow-up question is, how does it differ with part-time employees since?
For part-time employees, under monthly paid or weekly paid? Sorry.
I guess both. Yeah.
Well, okay. So the same process applies to part-time and full-time pay. You will still receive if it's monthly paid, you will receive your salary continuation plus the state bonding or vacation pay. And for the weekly, it would be through Unum for moms and as well through the Mass Paid Family Leave for bonding.
Any more questions?
Questions,
Comments?
suggestions,
Suggestions?
I guess a comment.
comments?
I think one of the benefits of working in science tends to be more flexibility, maybe compared with, let's say, working in a government job or industry. I can't speak for every PI, of course, but I think most PIs are pretty reasonable about being flexible. You know, if you need more time after your official leave to work different hours or work weekends instead of 9 to 5 or juggle things around, right? Take advantage of this flexibility of being in science. Like, let's be brutally honest. There are certain things that are better in industry, right? Pay, for example. What we do have as scientists is, I think, a little more flexibility to work from home, and not just during COVID, but you know, in general. And you know, I can't speak officially on behalf of the hospital, right? But as a PI myself, like, I think it's very important that your people are happy. That's the most important thing. And if they're happy, they're going to be productive. And if their family life is happy, it's going to translate to better science. So it's not a conflict between productivity and family life. It's about like using the fact that scientific work is generally more flexible, right? Taking advantage of that to have a rich family life and a rich career, right? So I see it as a positive thing working in this sort of environment, even compared to the clinical staff at MGH, right, who don't have the sort of flexibility we as scientists have. Like use this to your advantage. It's really and I've talked with senior faculty at Martinos who said exactly the same thing to me. You know, they said, you know, when we had our kids, we took advantage of this flexibility, even beyond the official leave that you get from the hospital. Like, some ability to be flexible in your hours is really a huge asset. So, yeah.
Also, maybe some practical tips. I think that's absolutely right. I think the other, in terms of like being in research or being a scientist, the other flip side to that is that I guess you are, even if you're officially on leave, there's sometimes important things you still have to attend to. So I sometimes found myself in a situation where I would just, there are things that, you know, you would have to do even though you're on leave. But there definitely often you have the choice to do some things and others. But one thing, practical things that I think are really important is like, when you get on leave or before you go on leave, even if you make sure you have an out of office reply to your email, that kind of just gives you that time to be okay not answering emails and let other people know. I think that's just, you know, it allows you to let go of some things. Because I think sometimes there's that feeling of responsibility to answer certain things, even though you're on leave. But in research, sometimes a lot of people still contact you. It's not just the local team you work with. And so that would be one thing. And then again, I think having some kind of plan for when you're returning to work, again, is also, I think we had a really tough time just because childcare was not available. That was, you know, exacerbated in the COVID pandemic, and we don't have any family around. So, so having things like that before, planning those things before the baby is born, definitely helps. Also, I want to mention that if you have a K grant or if you have an R grant, there are supplements that you can apply to that allow you. I think you can get an additional 50K or so to if you're. I
Is that on the K and the R, or just the K?
It's also on an R. I think it only applies if you have a single brand. If you have multiple brands that you already are administering as a PI, you don't, you're not eligible. But if you are usually as a young investigator, if you have one brand that you have as a PI, you can apply for this in addition, and you can apply to this supplement before you're giving birth. And I would highly recommend that. It had just come out for my case at the time, and I only managed to apply later, and they actually denied my request for different reasons. But I would highly encourage anyone that is in that situation to actually apply for it before your baby is born, because that's when you have time.
That's an interesting benefit. We should put it also.
It makes a big difference. Yeah. Yes.
Good point. Yeah.
And I guess I would say, to kind of follow up on that I actually originally had some visions of how I was going to like work a bit on some stuff during my mat leave. And my mat leave was so full on. Like, I don't think I had a chance. Like, I had the 20 weeks, but I don't think I really had a chance to like breathe until like the last 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Like, my baby had some feeding difficulties and needed like pediatric PT, which I didn't even know was a thing. So like, it could be more overwhelming and crazy than you might think. And so I think for me, it was also a lesson in like letting go of the science side of you for like a little bit. And that I think is totally okay and totally reasonable to do, to like basically prioritize your family when it has to be done. And like, not to feel, if you have, I didn't have this situation, but if you have any pressure from your PI to like do work while you're on leave, like it's totally okay to be like, I can't. So yeah, that's another side of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think it can be extremely overwhelming. Yeah, and there are so many different narratives that depending on what conditions you're as a new parent or continuing expanding parent.
If you do decide to take Zoom calls when you're on leave or after, like I took so many calls when I was hanging out with the baby. The baby was there with me and helped me out with my call, and I never had any issue. I took some very important calls too while I was just holding the baby. And I think the more parents model that sort of thing, the more normal it becomes, the more accepted it is. I really don't think it's a big deal. Frankly, I don't care if people on the call don't like it. I think if you're caring for a child and juggling things and still trying to get work done, kudos to you that you take a call with your baby. And I think it should be a totally normal thing, right? So
I think that's perfectly fine. My only part would be that if you're officially on leave,
well, you have to be careful.
Just not take a call.
Right.
Because I would say I think especially at the very beginning when you're recovering from birth, and if maybe you're also breastfeeding, like the time the baby sleeps, you might actually have to sleep. So that's usually the only time you have to sleep. So I think later on when that happens, I did that many times after leave was over, because we didn't have childcare options that were set up. So that's I think in general people have no problem with that. That's perfectly fine. I agree.
Raquel, is there any statement that you want to, or statement, discussion, clarification? I think you answered most of the questions.
I hope I did a good job and everyone heard me clear. This is great. This has
also to your name, and they know, to who they should contact if they have any questions.
Yes, they can definitely email me with your additional questions. If they weren't answered today, I can definitely take it back and answer you or call, and we can further discuss. Definitely. This has been a great experience, and just hearing everyone's thoughts on the process. It's also heartwarming because it's definitely good to hear others' feedback in their process. It's definitely different from a leave of absence specialist standpoint versus a person that's going on a leave of absence. So it's very, very nice. Thank you for having me, and thank you for extending out the invitation. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that concludes our first Parenthood series. So thanks everyone for coming, and to all our parent panelists, in person and remotely. Thanks, Michael, as well. Jason, Christine, and Danielle, and Raquel for answering like all of our questions. And yeah, this is definitely a conversation that will probably always continue, since there's going to be new updates. But yeah, if anyone in this group has questions, we posted Raquel's email in the chat, and hopefully Women in Science can also have our page with additional links to resources to make it easier for parents to access. So we'll definitely stay in touch, and I think that's really it. Anything else?
Thank you for organizing.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you, despite all the
Yeah.
technical difficulties.
Sorry, this new experience as hybrid, which only shows two of the panelists, and that's weird things. It wasn't us. The camera is doing everything by itself. We don't know how to control it.
For all our remote viewers, hopefully you didn't get a headache when the camera kept zooming in and out on the panel.
It wasn't any kid playing with it. It was just, the camera is just not being.
Too smart for his own good.
Yeah. Okay, I think that concludes our webinar. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Right on time, not bad.
First time.
The one question, I guess, I didn't ask, you